Welcome to SVG Television News for Tuesday, February 24th. I'm Jimmy Prince with the details. Vincentians were reminded yesterday of the negative effects felt under the monopoly of cable and wireless in the recent past, and why they should have a keen interest in the merger of Flow and Lima. Yesterday, local and regional stakeholders met to look at the implications of the merger to consumers at a public consultation held at the Methodist Church Hall. Digicel's General Counsel David Gary describes the merger as the most important occurrence in the telecommunications industry since the industry was liberalized. The merger will see a monopoly on 3 services, namely fixed broadband internet, fixed voice, and cable TV. Gary argues that economic theory and experience show that monopolies will lead to higher prices and lower quality services than if there were competition, as the monopoly seeks to maximize profits.
The monopolist ensure it can impose higher prices. It has to keep competition out. Now, another method that I mentioned, was that monopolists can tend to delay innovation because they're under no competitive pressure to introduce innovations. So, the slower the better, because there's no one else in the market anyway, and they can maximize their profits. Now, consumers in this region and people in this country will be familiar with poor telecom services provided by a monopolist in the not too recent past, and had a very, very similar name to one of the companies that's here today. But anyway, we've heard promises that will not happen again. As I said, I've no doubt that everybody is quite genuinely well-intentioned and in that regard. But as I said, the problem is that monopolies tend to have a life of their own, and things happen. And we've even already had an example, again, around the time when the merger was announced, that one of the people from the merging parties said that they did have the ability to offer speeds of up to 300 megabits per second in Barbados, but they weren't doing it because there was no competitive pressure to do it.
The Digicel representative further argues that generally with monopolies, customers are likely to suffer.
I think it was mentioned earlier that we can have fixed and mobile and TV and all together in a single package, and no doubt in the future that is what will happen. But there's a very big problem with that if only one provider is able to do it, and that is the international experience proves that when there's no other competitor able to offer the same complex bundles of services, the power of the monopolist is actually expanded, because consumers will switch to these bundles. As I think the Minister mentioned earlier, he gave the example, if there was a $15 bundle, you'll switch to it, and then what are your choices after that? Are you really going to switch back for one of the services because everything's now wrapped up together? The international experience is it's actually tricky to do that, and people tend not to. So you don't need contracts that allow you to leave in these circumstances, because you can be very confident the consumer is going to leave you anyway. And regulators around the world call this the lock-in effect. So while promising bundles of services, sounds great and is very promising in the right circumstances, it also can be very, very damaging to competition where no other competitor can provide the same bundle. So this is something that needs to be considered as well.
Gary says it is now time to ensure consumers are protected, explaining that it will be too late to impose conditions to control the soon-to-be monopoly after it has been established. Gary adds that there is a great need to put in place comprehensive conditions to prevent the industry from sliding backwards.
If the merger is to be proved, regulators will have to insist on certain conditions, in our view, to protect competition. So what are these conditions? What conditions would we normally see in other countries around the world? Well, I can tell you, in my experience, very, very few countries I've ever come across have permitted monopolies to go ahead. This would be a first, actually. And the big D is the answer that regulators usually come forward with. The big D is divestiture. When companies are merging together and they're going to have overlapping infrastructure which will give them a monopoly, they're required to sell part of the business to someone else. Needn't be Digicel, can be somebody else, so that there's another competitor in the market. They're not allowed to have a monopoly. Simple as that. Other conditions may also need to be imposed. I've mentioned the danger of bundling where there isn't a competitor able to provide a competing bundle. That's something I think regulators will need to look at.
Meanwhile, speaking in favor of the merger, Head of Government Relations of Cable and Wireless Communications, Chris Dering, says the merger is transformational. Dering says the merger will seek to provide customers of Flow and Lime with the best services through a single company.
The company will operate in 42 countries, but mainly the Caribbean. And I know we call ourselves all countries, you know, and I'm including Jamaica, we're only a little bigger than you. But we're tiny countries, all of us. You know, the merger will allow us to compete more effectively in a very challenging environment. The reality, as the minister himself pointed out, we're all very small, and so there's not a you know, list of investors with this kind of capital lining up to come and invest in our part of the world. What we have to do is to make sure when they come, they treat us with respect. We put in place whatever regulations need to be put in place to safeguard the consumers, and that's fair enough. I think people will abide by those rules. As long as it's clear, as long as it's the same for everybody. This merger is also consistent with what is happening everywhere else in the world, because there's something called fixed mobile convergence, which is taking place.
Dering says the merger will listen to all stakeholders following the exercise.
Every country is a little different. It's a little different. Dominica, Flow didn't operate, so there's no overlap. St. Vincent, they do operate, so there's overlap. And we're prepared to sit down with the regulators, with the ministers, look at what is best for the market, and we can come to an agreement. At the end of the day, we've been here 140 years. We intend to be here for another 140 years. And the reality is that this is all about investment, services, jobs, customer commitments, and creating a brand new company.
And the Minister of Telecommunications, Camila Gonzalez, says monopolies are not illegal and are not generally a bad thing once the strategic position is not abused. Gonzalez, in his address at the public consultation, says with such a small market here, with approximately 30,000 households, it is not very likely to have 4 or 5 big companies offering similar services. But instead, there will be 2 big players fighting it out.
I don't have any illusions, as I suggested, that St. Vincent and the Grenadines could host 10 telephone providers, because each one of them would have 1,000 or 2,000 customers. Nor do I believe that we could host 10 television companies or broadband companies. But we do need some level of competition. I don't hold any brief for any of the players here. In fact, I love it when they attack one another, because I hope the attacks will lead later to lower prices and better services. But I am concerned about competition in the post-merger environment, and I hope that the entities that are merging can address concerns about competition.
Additionally, Senator Gonzalez says what is of great importance to him is the issue of employment. He says it is his hope that the merger does not lead to significant job cuts, but instead it should create the opportunity for new and different jobs.
In the past, entities have merged in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and the first thing they've told us is that there'll be no layoffs. And always, layoffs come. And because that is the logic of mergers. If I wouldn't merge my company with your company if I had to keep all the employees. I expect that they exploit synergies and overlaps and get rid of the fat when they merge. But typically when regional entities merge and they cut the fat, we are the fat. And I would be surprised and skeptical if anybody stood in front of us today and said there would be no job cuts in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I hope that they would say their expanded business would lead to new jobs in new areas, but I will leave that to them.
The Garifuna Heritage Foundation is inviting the general public to an exhibition next month focusing on the recent archaeological excavations and the findings at Argyle. The exhibition is part of the activities for the International Garifuna Summit to be held here from the 9th to the 15th of March 2015. During the summit, 2 professors from Leiden University in Holland will present a large-scale model of the early indigenous village excavated at Argyle. The model has been crafted by Eric Pellissier and will be presented at the National Library in Kingstown, where it will become a permanent feature. The model will be accompanied by 5 educational posters which help to explain the content of the early indigenous village and which highlight the importance of archaeology in rediscovering and sharing these normally invisible indigenous histories. The official opening of the exhibition will take place on Monday, March 9th, 2015 from 9 a.m. Well, the Royal St. Vincent and the Grenadines Police Force Band today received a boost of 16 musical instruments at a cost of some $29,000. The donation was made by the Food for the Poor organization through the Catholic Pastoral Center. Local Representative Rosita Snag said the organization has been assisting this country since the 1990s and helped with medical supplies, among other necessities. The musical pieces consist of 2 trombones, 8 trumpets, 2 tenor sax, 2 alto sax, 1 bass drum, and 1 outside marching drum. Handing over the instruments, Monsignor Michael Stewart said he was pleased to collaborate with the officers of the law and pointed out that the police band plays a significant role in many activities across the nation.
So the playing of a musical instrument, the discipline it brings to human lives. We are happy that we can partnership with you in helping society to be more orderly. Music is a trainer, and of course you who are involved in it, you may attest to this. I want to echo the sentiments of Inspector Haynes that what you've received that you would take good care of. Recognizing that someone invested in giving us these instruments.
Band leader Inspector Bernard Haynes promised to take care of the musical instruments and said the donation comes when the band is celebrating its 64th anniversary.
We have to take care of them, because if you don't take care of things, especially when you get them free, some persons say when you get them free, easy come, easy go. But they don't know which source they come from, how much sweat and tears the person who donate them had to suffer or undergo. So we're very grateful for these pieces today. And we're going to make good use of them. And Ms. Nagaman said, you know, Stuart, we'll take our best care of these instruments.
Commissioner of Police Michael Charles said the donation is symbolic of the work the lawmen do to protect lives and the work the Catholic Church does to save lives.
To do more with regards to saving people's lives. And in my view, I see the church and the police force doing somewhat the same thing, because within the police force, we walk under the law of the land and try to save people's lives from criminology, while the church, they walk on a bigger law that is higher than the laws of the land, and they save people lives and souls from damnation. So all in all, we are somewhat doing the same thing, and it's great when the church and the police can partnership together on such occasion like this.
In news out of Stubbs now, the Moncoke Methodist Church is getting ready to celebrate its 220th anniversary. At a media conference yesterday, a number of activities were outlined for the anniversary celebrations, which include the T-shirt sales, revival services, the publication of a commemorative magazine, along with several fundraising events. In presenting an overview of the church's history, Maureen Trotman said it was stationed at several locations in the Stubbs area before it was permanently relocated to Moncoke. She noted that through the contributions of estate owners and a grant from the Methodist Missionary Society in London, the church was eventually built. She also credited the people in the Stubbs community for working together to build the now stone structure.
The new church was 10 years in building, as funds were not always available. However, some financial contributions were received from the owners of Argyle, Diamond, and Mount Pleasant estates. At any rate, the people had a mind to build. On moonlight nights, members and friends journeyed to Argyle River to collect stones with a boom drum in attendance. On other occasions, children and adults took shorter trips to Stubbsby to collect sand, which was mixed with white lime and molasses to make mortar.
The Reverend Adrian Oddle said while the church has challenges, it aims to be more vibrant in its evangelism.
Of the challenges that face the church, certainly financial, and also the need for the church to restate its influence on society. And so for us going forward, evangelism certainly will be an emphasis, and also we'd like to place some more emphasis on Christian education as we seek to mold young minds, both male and female, into becoming responsible citizens of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So as we reach this milestone, we thank God for His mercies, for His blessings upon us, and we would encourage the public of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to join with the Methodist community, and particularly Mount Cook, as we give God the honor, the glory, and the praise, and as we celebrate 20 years of God's wonderful works among us as His people.
In an effort to keep the bee industry going, a Beekeepers Beginners Certification training course will be held this Thursday at the Technical College in Annesville. The objective of this training course is to promote the development of the agriculture, that should be apiculture industry, and to encourage new farmers to get involved in beekeeping. Farmers will be introduced to the basic activities and the knowledge of practical beekeeping by Apicultural Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture, Alan Williams. According to the Ministry of Agriculture, since 2006, the apiculture industry in St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been growing by leaps and bounds. This through focused programming instituted to develop the subsector. Up to January 2015, the industry is said to have supported a total of 484 domesticated colonies among 41 apiaries managed by 60 beekeepers, 11 of whom are considered commercial producers.